Hey all, here are OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the Chuwi HeroBook. This is a 14-inch laptop running on Windows 10 Home Edition that sells for only $200, making it one of the better values you'll find on the market. Now this is a great alternative to, say, a Chromebook, which sells for about the same price and has similar internal specifications. Now to start with the design, the overall construction quality is made out of plastic as opposed to, say, aluminum, like on Chuwi's more expensive laptops, such as the HeroBook or the Lapbook. As a whole, though, it still feels quite sturdy and relatively lightweight with thin profiles on the sides. The overall color, I would say, is pretty similar to a space gray that Apple offers, so it definitely looks more expensive than the price would suggest. Now on the edge here, we do have access to a USB 3.0 port, a standard 3.5mm headphone jack, a micro SD card reader, and on the other side, there is a second USB 3.0 port, a proprietary charging port, and a mini HDMI port. Now the use of a proprietary charging port is a little bit disappointing. I would have liked to see USB Type-C because that's also what they're using on their tablets these days, but it is what it is at this price. Now on the rear, you'll also find a compartment where you can swap out the SATA. Now the device comes with 64 gigs of built-in system storage, but again, you can expand it if you want to. It also comes with 4 gigs of built-in RAM, by the way. Chuwi have also paid attention to the details like the hinge because you're able to open this laptop using just one hand or even just one finger. Usually it's a feature reserved for MacBooks, so it's great to see it on such a low-cost computer. We also graded to a very wide keyboard, extremely generous because it takes up extremely small bezels on the sides, basically extends to the entire width of the laptop, and as a result gives us really large keys for easy text entry. Now the keys themselves don't have, say, the most stable feel in the world. They are a little bit hollow, but as a whole they are already very tactile and responsive, so although the keyboard isn't backlit, it's spacious and comfortable to type on for emails and documents. Down below we have access to an extremely large touchpad that measures over 5 inches diagonally. It's in line with, again, current generation flagship laptops like the MacBook in terms of its language. As a result, you're able to very easily scroll and use your fingers to navigate around the UI, pinch to zoom, all the gestures work really well, and as a whole for a budget laptop, the trackpad definitely feels much better than the price would suggest. The display of the laptop is another highlight. Again, at 14 inches, it offers a full HD resolution and also IPS technology, which has really good viewing angles. Even as you tilt the display, you can see how colors don't really shift. It's actually very rare because for the price, most laptops will use a TN or a transflective panel that offers mediocre viewing angles. It's also a matte display, by the way, which means that it doesn't reflect or glare as much even when pointed against the light, so it makes it still pretty visible to use even if you're outdoors, and maximum brightness is also above average. The only thing to keep in mind though is it's not a touchscreen, so you are going to be relying on the trackpad. Now inside we have a Intel X5 E8000 processor. It's quad-core and can be clocked up to 2 GHz at maximum speed. It's actually a step up compared to the much more popular Intel Atom Z8350, which is clocked at 1.44 GHz and found on pretty much 99% of budget tablets running on Windows that we've seen over the past few years using the Intel Bay Trail and Cherry Trail architecture. This is actually a step up in terms of both synthetic benchmarks and real-world performance, whereas that one typically gets a raw performance score of around 1,200 on CPU benchmark. This one here actually gets around 1,700, so it gets pretty close to being a Intel Celeron when it comes to usage. And really the only compromises to speak of is they're using a plastic shell as opposed to an aluminum shell, which for $200 really should be expected anyways. If you're looking at tier 1 manufacturers like Dell or HP, they would for sure use plastic for their sub $200 laptops. So it's already nothing to really complain about. It's not going to be your fastest machine. It still can't be thought of as a replacement for a Core M or i-series device, but as long as your expectations are modest, if you're doing very light web browsing, opening up around 4 to 5 tabs, streaming YouTube up to full HD, maybe even 4K resolution, in addition to doing things like Office editing, Excel, PowerPoint presentations, this machine handles without any problems. Now, one of the other benefits of having an Intel processor is going to be the battery life. Now, this machine takes about 3 hours to completely charge, and afterwards it will last you for over 9 hours before the battery drains. Now, one thing to keep in mind though is it's a very stock install of Windows 10 Home Edition, fully activated, but what you won't find is a included version of Office 365 or Word or PowerPoint or Excel. If you want those tools, you'll still need to download them yourself. That's a contrary to a few years ago, where if you purchased a Windows 7 laptop, especially for students, they would often bundle it with a free version of Microsoft Word, but that's no longer the case, it seems, with these Windows 10 machines. So you have to, again, still buy your own Office suite. With that being said, you could also use OpenOffice, which is a free alternative, or use Google Docs instead, which works usually. So right now, both of these applications have begun launching up here. It's going to take about a few seconds to load up, but not bad at all. And we can create a new presentation, or we can start from, say, a certain template. Let's just tap on this one here and see how it handles it. And seems to still work quite well when it comes to these basic tasks like editing tools, so on and so forth. And here we have Microsoft Word also loaded up. Again, pinch to zoom gestures using the touchpad just feels very responsive and fluid. We're able to also just, again, very quickly edit these documents, whether it's for school purposes, if you're a student, if you also maybe are using it for very light, maybe office tasks for a professional, it will also work. So even these longer documents, it seems to handle without too many problems or hesitation. Now, reception quality is also a highlight on this machine. I say that because a lot of cheap laptops seem to not have good antennas at all. Especially, I had a problem before with the Jumper EasyBook. Maybe it's because it's built out of aluminum, but it seemed to block some of the antennas, where if I was in a room that was further away from the router, it would be just simply disconnected. And again, a laptop is only as good as its weakest link. You can have blazing fast internals, Intel Core i5 chipset, Intel Core i7, but it still wouldn't be great if, the Wi-Fi chip was pretty much disabled and you're unable to access the internet, which is a pretty critical feature in my opinion. So it's great to see that, again, the antenna here is excellent. On other laptops in the same price, I would often have disconnection problems. Again, keep in mind that this is a full HD panel, so there's more pixels for the processor and the GPU to push around than, say, a standard 720p, which could also result in, perhaps a split-second longer delay. But as a whole, again, performance is already super good. I would say it's now at the same level as a Chromebook, which is already saying something because, again, the operating system is a lot heavier than Chrome OS. There are a lot of tasks going on behind the scenes, allowing you to juggle other applications as well, more than just a web browser. So the fact that the performance of web browsing is pretty much at the same level in terms of speed and consistency is already quite surprising for the same price. So the interesting thing is I don't actually see any speaker grills cut out from the body of the machine, so it's probably coming out from underneath the keyboard or from the sides, but it actually packs a surprisingly good volume. It gets very loud. It doesn't have that much bass, of course. It's not the best speaker in the world, but for watching some quick clips on YouTube, it definitely passes. Or you can use Bluetooth wireless headphones because, yes, there is built-in Bluetooth as well. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Chuwi HeroBook. As a whole, it's a surprisingly good, low-cost $200 laptop, just because it doesn't have as many compromises as I was expecting. Compared to past machines around the same price, there's, again, a good display here, and it has all the essentials, including a faster processor. Really, if they had used the Z8350, I would say it's unusable in 2019, even at a really low price, just because it stutters too much and just closes up and becomes too much to deal with. But thankfully, the E8000 actually seems to be good enough to get you by through most tasks without having to wait too long, and gives you actually a pretty smooth and fluid experience when it comes to navigation. So again, if you are on a budget, this is actually not shabby at all. The fact that you can open the hinge with one hand, the fact that it's very lightweight, has a great display, and great battery performance make it a powerful competitor to a Chromebook, which for the same price, I would say that a Windows machine is capable of doing so much more, and I really think that Chuwi have done a good job here. So you can learn more details if interested in the links down below, and also check out our written review for more details. But for now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Chuwi HeroBook.